In the bustling city of Lagos lived a couple, Kemisola and Bolaji. Kemisola was a woman of prayer, and Bolaji always thought she exaggerated the time whenever she prays. They were a lovely couple. They got people's admiration from far and near. Bolaji was a hard-working man, doing all he could to give his family the best life there is amidst their happiness. They were beclouded by the grief of childlessness. They had gone to different hospitals, carried out several tests, and taken all sorts of fertility medications, but all seems to be unsuccessful, as it seemed as though they were destined to have everything good except children. Kemisola would pray day and night, fast for days and weeks round the year, and yet this makes it the ninth year of marriage without children. Bolaji was confronted by his mother concerning his state of childlessness and not having a grandchild to call her own. She would blame him for not marrying her choice, a girl she had brought to him while he was courting Kemisola. But Bolaji was bent on taking his love affair with Kemisola to the next level, even against his mother's wish. And after he did, his mother kept taunting them for not bearing children. Kemisola, who was by nature friendly and kind to everyone she came across, didn't hold any grudges against her mother-in-law, and instead she prayed harder and intensified her fast. One day, on her way to work, she met an old friend of hers way back in the university, BC. They shared pleasantries and exchanged contacts. That was the day her life began to take another turn. BC, who was an ardent believer and whose father was a pastor, was a very close friend of Kemisola, but they had lost contact after Kemisola got married and moved out of town. She was so happy to reconnect with Kemisola as they had shared a strong bond based on their faith. She couldn't wait to see her again and reconnect. Kemisola, on reaching home, told Bolaji all about her day and how she met with her university friend BC. Bolaji had heard about the exploits they both did back in the university, serving God. Bolaji, on the other hand, loved God, but he could not balance his work, marriage, and spiritual life, as most of the time he was away on official trips. BC came visiting Kemisola on a Sunday afternoon, and that was when she realized that amidst all the affluence the lovely couple had, they were deprived of the joy of parenthood. And even though Kemisola had not spoken a word about it to her, she could see the grave emotions, the emptiness that lingered in the couple, and they were doing a good job at concealing it. Kemisola seated beside her friend BC, but she couldn't mention her ordeal to BC because she thought to herself, let me not bore her. We are just meeting after a long time. They gisted on how life had treated them and how faithful God had been to them, irrespective of all they had been through. BC could tell that Kemisola was in deep grief. She had always had the gift of perceiving when something wasn't all right around her. As she got home, she went on her knees to pray, and she began to seek the face of God concerning every unsettlement in Kemisola and Bolaji's life. After her prayer, she felt a strange presence in the atmosphere, and she knew that something was truly not right. The next day, she called Kemisola and related it to her. Kemisola couldn't hold her tears, and she finally narrated her ordeal to her friend BC. BC promised to join Kemisola in prayers, with faith, believing that God would settle their case. Then they began a 7-day fasting and prayer, as it was no longer strange to them that there was a force behind their case. Kemisola informed her husband, Bolaji, about the fast, but Bolaji was not ready to go that extent. He told Kemisola to carry on behalf of both of them. So Kemisola and Bisi decided that they would hold the prayer at Kemisola's house every day for the next 7 days. On the third day of the prayer, Bolaji's mom showed up in the house from the village wearing a long face. She looked angrily at Bisi and Kemisola. She asked Bisi, "What are you doing here?" Bolaji's mom called him to her room and insisted he sent Kemisola's friend Bisi away, that she was not comfortable having her around the house. Bolaji, who was indifferent about the whole situation, told his mom that Bisi was a very nice lady and he does not see anything wrong with her. When Bolaji's mom saw that she couldn't persuade her son, she resorted to handling the matter herself. On the 6th day of the prayer, Bolaji's mom could not hold herself. She knew that if she didn't do something, she was going to be exposed. So she confronted Bisi and told her to leave the house immediately, that her prayers were disturbing the whole neighborhood and wouldn't allow people sleep. Bisi was not surprised, as it had been revealed to her. She ignored Bolaji's mom and went on with the prayer. Kemisola was displeased with her mother-in-law's attitude, as she thought her mother-in-law was a prayer woman herself. She could not understand why she detested Bisi's presence so much. Bisi, prior to the 7th day of the fast, had informed her father, the pastor, who was to be present in the last day of the prayer and fasting. On that very night, the night before the 7th day, while Bisi was sleeping, she sensed the presence of that same strange spirit and woke up to find Bolaji's mom standing over her in a red cloth with white patches on her face, holding a pot. No one needed to tell Bisi what was happening. She immediately began to pray, and in a short while, Bolaji's mom disappeared from there. She continued in her prayer till she fell asleep. In the dawn of the 7th day of the fasting and prayer, Bisi met Kemisola and told her again of the previous night's experience with her mother-in-law. But Kemisola wouldn't believe her. While they were conversing, Bolaji's mom walked up to Bisi and told her she was giving her only the next 10 minutes to leave her son's house, else she would personally deal with her. At that moment, Kemisola began to reason with Bisi, and it was obvious her mother-in-law was no longer comfortable around the house. Shortly after, a knock on the door, and Kemisola, recognizing Pastor John, Bisi's father, welcomed him and offered him a seat. But Pastor John was not paying attention to Kemisola, as his eyes was on Bolaji's mom, who was already furious. As Pastor John started praying, Bolaji's mom couldn't hold herself. She began to scream and yell at them. She started confessing how she had sacrificed all her unborn children and grandchildren. She was responsible for their childlessness, and she never wanted her son to marry Kemisola, as she liked to pray. But he wouldn't listen to her and went against her wish. Bolaji came in just about time to hear his mom confessing to being responsible for his ordeal. He looked at her with so much pain in his eyes and told her he wished she was never his mother. Then she fell to the ground and her body disappeared. Kemisola and Bolaji, filled with mixed feelings of both freedom and disappointment, thanked Pastor John and Bisi for their immense support and sacrifice. 4 months later, Kemisola was pregnant and had just received the scan that showed she was carrying twins. She went on her knees and thanked God.